You live long enough, you learn there's two kinds of stories families tell. There's the sweet ones, the ones that get dusted off every Thanksgiving. The remember when the turkey caught on fire stories. The ones where everybody laughs and your heart feels a little softer driving home. And then there's the other kind. The stories nobody tells out loud, but everybody acts out anyway. The ones baked into who gets called first in a crisis, who gets believed, who gets blamed. Those are the stories that can strangle a family for generations. This is one of those. And it all came to a head on a Sunday afternoon in my sister's living room, with the smell of reheated coffee and lemon cleaner in the air, and a big blue binder sitting in my lap like a loaded gun. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up to where this really started, which was long before the binder, long before the shouting, long before anybody ever used the words caregiver or power of attorney, or you never did anything to help mom. It started the year my mama forgot the cornbread in the oven. Now, if you'd ever met my mama, you'd know that sentence don't even make sense. My mama, Miss Lillian Me, could bake cornbread in her sleep, and probably did a few times. That woman knew the timer by feel. Be halfway across the house and say, "June bug, pull that pan out. It's been 22 minutes. And I'd look at the clock, and she'd be right to the second. So the year she forgot it, the smell hit before we understood what it meant. I remember standing at her stove, stirring gravy and thinking, Lord, why does it smell like something died in this oven? I opened that door, and a cloud of black smoke came rolling out like a cartoon. The cornbread was a brick, hard as Jason's head when he was little. Mama came shuffling in, frowning. Well, who burnt that? You did, Mama, I said, gentle, thinking it was just one of those days. You put it in, and then you went to watch your stories. She laughed it off, waved her hand like she was swatting a fly. Oh, hush, June, must have been you. And I let it go. Because that's what we do at first, when something scary is trying to introduce itself. We pretend we didn't hear it knock. Back then, I was already doing a lot at Mama's. Lived 15 minutes away, still in town. My husband, back when I had one, worked nights. The kids were more grown than not. And Mama had started to need help, as the polite phrase goes. It started small. Me taking her to her doctor appointments because Daddy wasn't around anymore and she didn't like driving on the highway. Me checking her pill box every Sunday to make sure the days weren't all mixed up. Me noticing her fridge had 3 cartons of sour milk in it because she kept forgetting she'd bought some. My older sister, Linda, was up in Nashville, a good 3 hours away. Big house, big job, big Christmas cards with everybody wearing matching pajamas. If Hallmark needed a family, they'd have rented hers. He'd blow in once every couple months like a gust of perfume and new shoes. Bring Mama a fancy candle, post a selfie on Facebook with the caption, "Nothing like time with Mama." And then she'd be gone before the coffee even finished brewing. I'm not saying that as a complaint. That's just the picture. I was the one who sat with Mama at 3 in the morning when she woke up convinced there was a little boy crying in the hallway. I'd walk the house with her, every room, showing her there was no one there. And we'd sit at the kitchen table, and I'd fix her some toast, and we'd watch the sky lighten over the pecan tree. I was the one who took her to the neurologist when she started repeating the same story 3 times in 1 hour. I'm the one who sat in that cold little office, smelling like antiseptic and fear, and listened to the doctor say, early stage dementia, while Mama nodded like she was hearing about a neighbor. And I was the one who took her home, made her tea, and listened when she whispered, "Please don't tell Linda yet. She'll make a big thing of it. I just want to be Lillian for a little while longer, not a patient." So I didn't, not yet. I tell you all that so you know the layout. So when we get to the part where my sister looked me dead in the eye and said, "You never helped, Mom. You left everything to me," you can feel how deeply those words cut. Because by then, I had a folder. Now, this wasn't some big planned out strategy at the beginning. I didn't sit down one day and say, I'm gonna save every receipt and every note and every hospital wristband like I'm building a court case. At first, it was just survival. I'm a list person. My brain feels better when I have things on paper. First page in that now famous folder was a scribbled list on a dollar store legal pad. At the top I wrote, "Mama meds, don't forget," underneath. I had her new prescription, the dosage, the times, the side effects to watch for. I stuck it in the folder so it wouldn't get lost between the pizza coupons and the church bulletins on the fridge. Then there was a printout of her MRI results, because the nurse at Dr. Patel's office had sighed and said, "Make sure y'all keep copies of everything. You're gonna want a paper trail." A paper trail. That phrase stuck with me. So every time we had a new test, a new prescription, a new care plan, I'd ask for a copy. I'd stick it in the folder. Every time I used my debit card to pick up her meds, I'd tuck the receipt inside. Every time I had to pay her light bill online because she'd forgotten and gotten a shut-off notice, I'd print the confirmation page. Not because I didn't trust her, because I didn't trust the world, because I could already hear the future conversations. Well, who did what? And how bad was it? And why didn't anyone tell me? I knew the only thing that cuts through, I think, and I remember in this world is here. I wrote it down. The folder lived in my big old purse, right alongside my wallet, my keys, and about 16 wadded up tissues. I took it everywhere. It got thicker. Pages dog-eared, ink smudged, but it was all there. The first big thing that went into it was a hospital bracelet. Mama had fallen in the kitchen, tripped over the mat she'd had since 1973. She insisted she was fine. I could see her ankle was swelling like bread dough in a warm oven. "Get in the car," I told her, grabbing my purse and that folder out of pure habit. "I don't need no emergency room," she grumbled, but she didn't fight too hard. She was tired more these days. The spark was still there, but it flickered. We sat in that emergency room for 5 hours. You folks who've been there, you know the smell. Stale coffee, bleach, somebody's too strong cologne, and fear. Always fear. They did x-rays, blood work, a CAT scan just to check. The nurse came in with that tight professional smile and said, "Well, the good news is it's just a sprain. The bad news is, Ms. Lawson, your blood pressure is sky high and your sodium is low. When's the last time you saw your primary?" "I see him plenty," Mama said, waving her hand. "He's a nice boy." "A nice boy who hasn't seen you in 6 months, the nurse said, looking at the computer. Then she looked at me. Not at Mama. At me. "You the daughter?" "Yes, ma'am." "You local?" "Yes, ma'am." "Then I'm gonna tell you this because she's gonna forget I said it." She lowered her voice. "You need to watch her. She's not safe living alone much longer. Not without somebody keeping a really close eye." I felt my stomach drop. "What does that mean, exactly?" "It means start documenting," she said. "Every fall, every scare, every time she leaves the stove on, every time she forgets the way home." If she hesitated, looked over at Mama, dozing in the bed. When you get to the point where you need more help, a good paper trail is your best friend. Paper trail. So you better believe I kept that hospital bracelet. I asked for copies of all the discharge papers. I wrote down the nurse's name, the date, the exact words she'd said. I stuck it all in the folder, because deep down I knew nobody was going to just take my word for any of this. Not my sister, not the insurance, not the state, not even myself, 5 years down the line when the days blurred together. I did tell Linda, eventually. I wasn't trying to keep secrets. I was trying to honor Mama's wish to not be turned into a diagnosis overnight. The first time I brought it up, we were standing in Mama's kitchen. It was July. The air was heavy, the cicadas screaming. Linda was down for a whirlwind weekend check on Mama, drop off some organic jam back on the road. "How's she really doing?" she asked, finally, after we talked about her kids' soccer games and the new cul-de-sac they'd moved to. I took a breath. "She's slipping, Lynn. She got lost in the grocery store last week. She called me from the cleaning aisle crying because she couldn't remember how to get to the front." Linda frowned. "Well, why were you letting her go by herself?" "Because she's 68, not 8, I snapped, too quickly. Then I softened. "I'm with her most days. I'm just saying it's getting worse." She shrugged, like I'd mentioned the weather. "Yeah, well, that's what happens when you get old. We'll just have to keep an eye on her." "I am keeping an eye on her," I said. "I'm the one taking her to Dr. Patel, and to the neurologist, and to the podiatrist because she cut her foot and didn't tell anybody for 2 weeks." "Why didn't you call me?" she demanded. "I did," I said. "You were on a plane to Denver for that conference. You said you'd check in later, and then you didn't." She got that pinched look she has, the one that says you've stepped on a sore spot. "Well, you know how crazy my schedule is." I did know. Believe me, I knew. We all knew. We'd been trained from childhood to know. Linda was the successful one, the straight A student, the scholarship, the first to own a house, the first to have doctor in her friend circle. She'd been groomed to go, to soar, to not look back. I'd been the one who stayed, the one who knew where the good towels were, the one who knew how Mama liked her coffee, 2 sugars, no cream, the one who knew Daddy's stories by heart. We'd each been given a role. Nobody had said it out loud, but it was there in every well. Of course, Linda can't make it. She's working so hard, and every June can help. She's right here. We deplayed those roles so long they felt like skin. Roles don't sit with you in the ER at midnight. People do. And I was the one there. So when my sister, years later, sat across from me and said, "You never did anything for Mom," it wasn't just an insult. It was a denial of reality. Reality I had written down, piece by piece, in that folder. Mama declined like a slow sunset, not the dramatic fall off the cliff type, just a fading day by day. First, she stopped cooking much. Then she stopped going outside alone. Then she stopped remembering which granddaughter was which, calling them all baby and sweetheart instead of their names. I rearranged my life around her without even realizing I was doing it. I switched from full-time to part-time at the salon so I could take her to her appointments. That meant less money in my account, more overdraft fees, more late-night math at the kitchen table. I started doing her grocery shopping, her laundry, her bill paying. I set up online accounts for her utilities and taught myself how to navigate those awful automated phone menus so I could ask for extensions when she forgot to pay. Every time I logged in to pay something, power, water, phone, I'd print the confirmation page and stick it in the folder. Every time I had to cover it myself out of my checking account because her Social Security check was short, I'd write the amount, the date, the reason. Not because I was keeping score, because I knew one day someone was going to ask, where did all her money go? And I wanted to be able to say, right here, on her life, on her care. There were plane tickets in that folder too, not mine, Linda's. The first time she called me crying from Nashville, it was 2 a.m. "June," she sobbed, "I can't do this. I just got off the phone with Mom and she didn't know who I was. She thought I was Aunt Ruby." I rolled over, wiping my eyes. "I know, baby, I know. She did that to me last week. Thought I was her 3rd grade teacher." "What are we gonna do?" she asked, voice small, like she was 12 again, and the neighbor boy had picked on her. "We're already doing it," I said, "one day at a time." "But I need to see her," she said. "I need to be there. I'll come down next weekend. You know she might not be much better then, I warned. She might be the same, or worse. I don't care, she snapped. I have to come. So she did. And I was the one who booked her flights on my laptop, because she didn't have time to deal with all those little details. And she'd Venmo me the cost later. Sometimes she did right away. Sometimes she forgot, and I'd have to remind her 3 times. Every ticket confirmation, every boarding pass I printed for Mama to tape on the fridge, Linda's coming. Every credit card charge I ran through my own account with a note, Linda flight OWSME, went into the folder. There were hotel receipts too, because Linda couldn't possibly get any work done in this house. It's like a circus. So she'd stay at the Hampton Inn out by the highway. We have a guest room, I'd say, more than once. It's not about that, she'd reply, offended. It's about having a quiet space and good Wi-Fi. I stopped arguing. I just wrote it down. Then there were the hospital receipts. Lord, have mercy. Those could fill a whole book on their own. First big one came the night Mama forgot where she was and wandered out the front door in her nightgown at 3 a.m. I'd fallen asleep on the couch. My plan was to stay over just in case. And my just in case happened while I was drooling into a throw pillow. I woke up to the front door slamming and a neighbor's voice yelling, "Miss Lillian, you can't be out here like this." I bolted upright, heart sprinting. There was Mama, barefoot and shivering, clutching her purse to her chest. "I'm late for school," she told me, eyes wide and glassy. "The bus is coming." She was 70. I got her inside, wrapped her in a blanket, and called 911 with shaking hands. The paramedics came, checked her vitals, asked me 1,000 questions. I answered as best I could, my mind spinning. She ended up in the hospital for 3 days that time, while they ruled out infections and strokes, and all the other things that could cause confusion when the brain is already fragile. I slept in the world's worst reclining chair at her bedside, my back screaming, the smell of hospital food and antiseptic sinking into my clothes. I ate vending machine crackers and drank coffee that tasted like burnt hopes. And I kept receipts, parking, cafeteria, prescriptions, the gas station down the street where I'd run to cry in my car so Mama wouldn't see. Every bill from the hospital went into the folder. Every explanation of benefits from her insurance that explained nothing. Every note from a doctor that said needs 24-hour supervision. Because let me tell you something, when a doctor writes needs 24-hour supervision in black ink, that phrase becomes a brick. You can build a case with it. You can build a wall. You can build a bridge. I was building all 3. I just didn't know it yet. You might be wondering where my sister was in all this. It's a fair question. She visited. She called. She cried. She sent flowers. She posted long emotional captions about watching your parents fade is the hardest thing, and got 100 hearts and praying for you comments. What she didn't do, at least not in those years, was stay. Now, to her credit, there were reasons. She had 2 kids in middle school. Her husband traveled 4 days a week for his job. Her own career was demanding. Silicon Valley headhunters were calling. She had a mortgage, a dog, a book club, a personal trainer. I'm not being sarcastic. Those things were real responsibilities. Life is heavy in all kinds of ways. But here's the thing. Life doesn't pause because you are tired or busy. It just keeps stacking. And caregiving, that's a kind of weight they don't teach you how to lift. I don't think my sister had any idea how heavy it had gotten on my side until the day Mama wandered out the front door the second time. Because that time, the state got involved. It was a Tuesday. I remember because it was trash day, and Mama always liked to stand at the window and watch the big truck come clanking down the street. Except that morning, when I called to tell her I'd be over after my 9 o'clock client at the salon, she didn't answer. I figured she was in the bathroom. I left a message. By 10, she still hadn't picked up. That little knot in my chest started twisting. By 10:30, I'd called a neighbor to knock on her door. "She's not answering, honey," Mrs. Green said, out of breath. "And her car S in the driveway." My heart dropped into my shoes. I told my client I had an emergency. I didn't even finish cutting her bangs. I drove the 10 minutes to Mama's house in 5. The front door was unlocked. The kitchen was empty. The bedroom, the bathroom, the living room, no sign of her. Her purse was gone. Her shoes were gone. Her housecoat was gone. The knot turned into a fist around my throat. I called 911. Again. They sent a patrol car. We filed a missing persons report. I gave them every detail: her height, her weight, her medical conditions, the fact that she might tell people she was on her way to school. They found her 2 hours later, 3 miles away, standing in front of the old elementary school with tears streaming down her face. "What are all these cars doing here?" she was asking the bewildered principal. "Where are the children?" We brought her home in the back of a squad car. The officer, a young woman with tired eyes, pulled me aside. "Ma'am, do you have paperwork on her condition? Any doctor notes? Anything about her needing supervision?" "Yes," I said, hand already reaching for my purse. "Yes, I do." I showed her the folder. The neurologist's notes. The hospital discharge papers. The phrase 24-hour supervision circled in red pen. She nodded slowly. "Okay. I'm going to have to file a report with Adult Protective Services," she said. "Not because you've done anything wrong. Because once someone's wandering like this, it's a safety issue. You might qualify for some in-home help, but they're going to want to see all this." "Okay," I said. My knees were shaking. "Okay, you doing this by yourself?" she asked, glancing toward the house where Mama sat, confused, sipping the glass of sweet tea I'd put in her hands. "Mostly," I said. "My sister S out of town." "Well," she said gently, "you make sure you write down everything. Times, dates, who you talk to. It'll matter later." "It already matters," I whispered. That night I called Linda. She answered on the 3rd ring, sounding distracted. "Hey, I'm just heading into a meeting." She wandered off, Lynn, I said, my voice shaking. "They found Mom at the old elementary school in her housecoat." There was a beat of silence. "What? When?" "This morning. I couldn't find her." We called 911. We filed a report. APS is going to be involved now. "Oh my God," she breathed. "Why didn't you call me sooner?" "I did," I said, my temper flashing. "You didn't pick up. I left a message." "I was in the shower," she protested. "I can't teleport, June." "I know that," I snapped. "I'm telling you what's happening. They're talking about in-home caregivers, maybe assisted living down the line. We're at that point." "You never tell me anything until it's a crisis," she said, her voice rising. "I feel like I'm always hearing about stuff after the fact." I closed my eyes, took a breath. "I tell you," I said, quieter, "you forget. Or you put it somewhere in your brain and don't look at it. Because you can. Because you're there and I'm here." "That's not fair," she whispered. "None of this is fair," I shot back. Then I softened. "Look, APS is going to want a family meeting at some point. A care plan. You probably need to be here for that." "I can't just drop everything," she said, a little hysterical laugh at the edges. "I have a project launch next week." "Well," I said, staring at the folder open on my kitchen table, pages fanned out like a deck of very sharp cards. "Start figuring out what you can drop. Because they're not asking if we're ready. They're telling us she needs more than I can keep doing by myself." "I never asked you to do everything," she said. "No," I replied. "You just chose a life where you couldn't." Silence. And softly, "That's not fair either." "Maybe not," I sighed. "But it's true. You'd think, after that phone call, we might have had some big come-to-Jesus talk, just the two of us. Maybe cried together. Maybe made a plan. We didn't. We texted. We emailed. We each, in our own ways, tried to outrun the fear by being busy. She sent me links to memory care facilities, just to look at. I sent her scanned copies of doctor's notes. I kept adding to the folder home health nurse visits, blood work, the list of medications long enough to be its own grocery list. Then the letter from Adult Protective Services came, bright and official and terrifying. They wanted a family case conference. We find it's best, the social worker told me over the phone in a tired voice, to have all the key players in one room. That way everyone hears the same information. No miscommunication. No, she said, just facts. Facts. I had those, a whole binder full. When I told Linda about the meeting, she didn't yell. She didn't cry. She got very, very calm. Good, she said. Maybe now we can finally talk about how this has all fallen on me. I nearly dropped the phone. Fallen on you? Yes, she said, emotionally, financially, logistically. I mean, I'm the one paying for half of this stuff, June. For half, I repeated, my voice going flat. At least, she said. Flights, hotels, taking time off work, sending money when you call in a panic about some bill. You don't understand what that does to our budget up here. Up there, I repeated slowly. You mean in your 4-bedroom house with 2 incomes? That's not the point, she snapped. The point is, I feel like you dump everything on me and then act like you're the martyr. I looked across the table at my open folder, at the stack of receipts with my name on them, at the scribbled notes, paid past due gas bill, $127.833 AM notice on door. At the mileage log I'd started keeping when the doctor mentioned the possibility of Medicaid reimbursement. Something in me went very still, like the moment before a storm hits when the birds go quiet. Okay, I said. Then let's all talk about it. At the meeting. What's that supposed to mean? She demanded. Means, I said, my voice calmer than I felt. Bring your numbers. I'll bring mine. And we'll see who's been carrying what. There was a pause, then a scoff. God, June, you sound like a lawyer. I sound like somebody who's tired of being told she doesn't do anything, I said. I'll see you Sunday. That's how I came to be sitting on my sister's couch 3 weeks later with a big blue binder in my lap. You know that weird smell family houses have, where it's a mix of cleaning products and whatever they cooked last, and a hint of old shoes by the door. That's what her living room smelled like. Pine sol and coffee, and the meatballs she'd made in the crock-pot, so everybody has something to nibble on. The APS social worker, Ms. Ramirez, sat in an armchair with a notebook. Early 50s, hair pulled back, tired eyes that had seen too many versions of this same scene. Mama was in the recliner, wrapped in a soft blanket, hands folded. She had good days and bad days then. This was a middling day. She knew who I was, but kept calling Linda the pretty nurse. 12-year-old me might have snickered at that. Grown me just felt a dull ache. My brother Jonathan sat on the edge of the loveseat, shoulders hunched. He lived in town too, but he had 3 little kids and a shift job at the plant. He did what he could, mowing Mama's yard, changing out light bulbs, taking her grandkids for ice cream so she could feel like a normal grandma for an hour. He was quiet that day. I could tell he wanted no part of the Lawson sisters' showdown. Linda sat across from me, ankles crossed, a neat little stack of papers on the coffee table in front of her. Her hair was perfect. Her blouse was crisp. She looked like she belonged in a brochure for competent adult daughters. Ms. Ramirez started the meeting with the same speech I imagine she's given 1,000 times. We're all here because Ms. Lawson's needs have increased, she said gently. The goal is to keep her safe, maintain her dignity, and support the family as best we can. This is not about blame. This is about information and planning. Information, Linda said brightly. That's what I've been asking for. I kept my hand on the binder so I wouldn't say something sharp. We'll talk about finances, Ms. Ramirez went on. We'll talk about time commitments. We'll talk about legal options down the line. But first, I'd like to hear from y'all. How has this felt? What are you dealing with? Before I could open my mouth, Linda started. Well, she said, with a weary sigh that made it sound like she'd just finished pulling a plow by herself. It's been a lot. I feel like everything keeps landing on me. The big decisions, the money, the guilt. Guilt? Ms. Ramirez asked, pen poised. Yes, Linda said, nodding, eyes shining a little. Because I'm not here, I'm 3 hours away. I have a demanding job, I have kids. I can't just drop everything and run every time there's a crisis. But somehow, I'm the one who's expected to fix it all. I'm the one who pays for the big things. I'm the one mom calls crying at 2 in the morning when she's confused. I felt my jaw clench. That must feel heavy, Ms. Ramirez said, validating. And you, Ms. Lawson. She turned to me. I opened my mouth, but Linda jumped back in. And honestly, she said, half the time I don't even know what's going on until after. June just handles things, and then calls me when she needs money or wants me to co-sign something. And then she gets to be the hero, and I'm the bad guy who's not doing enough. Linda, I said, trying to keep my voice level. That's not, she turned that laser glare on me. Is it not? Because from where I'm sitting, you've set yourself up as the martyr. You go around telling people you're taking care of mom like Jonathan, and I don't exist. Jonathan's head jerked up. Hey now, he said uneasy. Don't drag me in. And you know what really hurts? Linda continued, voice rising. Hearing from mom over and over, June does everything. June's my angel. June's my nurse. Like I haven't sacrificed anything. Like I haven't paid for half of everything from up in Nashville without a thank you. You don't know what that's done to my marriage, to our finances, to my health. My vision narrowed. I could feel the old pattern tugging at me. Apologize, smooth it over, take the blame so we can all get back to pretending. Instead, I took a slow breath. I put my hand flat on the binder and felt the weight of it. You done? I asked softly. She stared at me, shocked. Excuse me. Are you done? I repeated. Because I'd like to say some things too. She huffed, sat back. Go ahead. I'm sure we're all dying to hear about how saintly you are. Ain't nobody in this room a saint, I said, least of all me. But I do have facts. I picked up the binder. It felt heavier than it had that morning, like all those late nights and early mornings were sitting in it with me. What is that? Linda asked, frowning. This, I said, laying it on the coffee table, is what I've been doing while you think I've been playing the martyr. I opened it. Right on top was a sheet of paper I'd labeled in big letters, Care Log Mom. Underneath were dates and short notes. March 3 ER visit, fall, ankle sprain. Stayed 6 hours. Nurse said needs supervision. March 27 neurologist apt. Official diagnosis, moderate vascular dementia. April 12 paid past due electric bill, $143.20. Shut off, notice on door. May 1 APS caseworker visit. Recommended in-home aid. Needs family meeting. Page after page. I watched Linda's face shift as she scanned the lines. These are just your notes, she said, trying to sound dismissive. Your version of things. And these, I said, flipping the page, are not. Behind my notes were copies of hospital discharge papers with diagnoses and instructions. Handwritten notes from doctors. The neurologist's letter recommending 24-hour supervision. The APS report after the wandering incident, with words like risk and immediate intervention underlined. Then came the receipts. Pharmacy receipts with my debit card number blacked out, but the amounts visible. Gas receipts from those middle of the night hospital runs. Grocery receipts where the cart was full of Mama's staples, instead of mine. I'd highlighted every line that was for her. Ensure shakes, adult diapers, blood pressure monitor, sugar-free candy, because she still wanted something sweet. This is the last 2 years of me doing her shopping, I said quietly. Every H-E-B run, every Walgreens stop. I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying it because you said you didn't know what I was doing. Linda's mouth had gone tight. Her eyes were darting over the page. That's fine, she said. You live here. It makes sense you'd handle the day-to-day stuff. But I've been covering the bigger things. Yes, I said. You have. I flipped to another section. The tab read LINDA contributions. I told you to bring your numbers, I said, but I didn't trust that you would. So I kept mine on your behalf too. There were printouts of her Venmo transfers to me. $200 for mom's meds, $500 for hospital bill help, $300 for plumber backup at mom's. Each one was printed with the date, the amount, and my handwritten note about what we used it for. There's $4,820 here from you over the last 3 years, I said. I'm grateful for every penny. It's been a lifeline, but it's not half of everything. Not when Mama's assisted living bills start coming in. Not when you factor in my lost wages from cutting my hours. I realize, she said, voice small. Of course you didn't, I said. You weren't here, how could you? I turned another page. Here's your flight receipts, I went on, and my voice softened. From all the times you came down in a panic when something big happened. Stroke scare. First wandering. That time she ended up in the ICU with pneumonia. I pointed to one. I booked this one for you at midnight so you could get on a 6 a.m. flight and be here before surgery. Remember, she nodded, eyes filling. I couldn't stop shaking at the airport. I know, I said. I was the one you called from the TSA line. I looked over at Ms. Ramirez, then back at my sister. I am not saying you haven't done anything, I said. You've done a lot, in your way, in your lane. But to sit there and say, this has all fallen on me, while I have literally a binder full of evidence of what I've been doing, that hurts, Linda. It erases me. It erases Mama's trust in me. It erases all the nights I slept in a chair holding a puke bucket. I didn't know, she whispered. That's the point, I said. You didn't know because you didn't want to know. Because knowing meant maybe you'd have to feel guilty. And you were already drowning in guilt from being far away. She opened her mouth, closed it again. I took a breath. I could feel my heart pounding in my ears. Mama shifted in her chair, watching us with cloudy eyes, sensing the tension even if she didn't understand the words. I started this folder, I said, tapping it, because a nurse told me it would matter later. I thought she meant for Medicaid or for some caseworker. I never imagined it would matter most with my own sister. But here we are. Ms. Ramirez cleared her throat. This is impressive documentation, she said. Honestly, I wish more families did this. It makes it very clear who's been providing which types of care. Linda bristled. So what? I'm the villain here, she snapped. Because I chose to have a career, because I live away. I'm sorry I couldn't just move back home and sacrifice my life like June. Nobody asked you to, I said, least of all me. I never asked you to give up your life to be here. Asked you to stop acting like I haven't given up pieces of mine. I looked down at my hands. The folder was open to a page where I'd written, late one night, missed Lily's dance recital, Mama had bad day, wouldn't let me leave, and circled it 3 times. I missed things too, I said quietly. My kids' stuff, friends' weddings, date nights, job opportunities. I lost clients who got tired of me rescheduling. I lost sleep. I lost parts of myself. I looked up at her, and I chose that. I'm not blaming you for my choices. I'm saying, don't come in here and talk like you're the only one who's been carrying anything. 'Cause that's just not true. Linda's face crumpled. I didn't know, she said again, voice cracking. You never told me all this. Jonathan let out a soft snort. She tried, he muttered. You just didn't want to hear it. Ms. Ramirez held up a hand. Okay, she said. Let's all take a breath. We did. I heard the tick of the wall clock, the distant hum of the fridge, the little wheeze in Mama's breathing. Then Mama spoke. I remember, she said, surprising us all. Her voice was thin but clear. I remember June washing my hair in the sink, and that time she stayed with me all night when I thought the ceiling was fallen in. Her eyes moved to Linda. And I remember you bringing me that fancy lotion that smelled like oranges, and mackin' me laugh on the phone when I was scared. She looked between us, her gaze sharper than it had been all day. You both my girls, she said. You both helped me. I don't want no tally marks. I felt tears sting the back of my eyes. We're not trying to make tally marks, Mama, I said. We're trying to make a plan so you're taken care of. She sighed, looking suddenly very tired. I'm so tired of Bane taken care of, she whispered. Ms. Ramirez leaned forward. Ms. Lawson, she said gently, with what your daughters have documented, and with your current level of need, I can recommend some resources. In-home aids to give June a break. Maybe some respite care so Linda can take over for a week now, and then while June rests. Down the line, we may need to talk about memory care facilities. But with this level of documentation, she nodded at the binder, we can make a strong case for support. For both of you. I exhaled. I didn't even realize I'd been holding my breath. Linda wiped her cheeks. So, what now? She asked. Now, Ms. Ramirez said, we decide who is willing and able to do what. Not what you should do. Not what you wish your sister would do. What you actually can. She looked at me. June, you've clearly been the primary hands-on caregiver. How much longer can you keep that up at this level? I looked at my mother, at the woman who'd baked me birthday cakes and spanked my behind when I lied, and hugged me so tight at my divorce that I finally let myself cry. I can keep being her daughter, I said. I can keep sitting with her and making her tea and watching Wheel of Fortune with her. But I can't keep being a full-time nurse and bill collector and social worker and maid all by myself. Not without losing my mind. That's fair, Ms. Ramirez said. And you, Linda, she asked. What can you realistically commit to? Linda looked deflated. Smaller than usual. I can't move here, she said quietly. My job, the kids' school, it's not an excuse, it's just reality. But I can, she swallowed. I can be more present with the logistics. I can stop pretending if I don't read the emails, it won't be happening. She glanced at me. I can take over managing the finances, she said. Bills, insurance forms, filing for Medicaid if we need it. I'm better at that stuff than you. She wasn't wrong. I could organize papers, but those online forms gave me hives. But that means, she added, turning back to Ms. Ramirez, that we need the accounts set up so I can see them. And we need everything out in the open. No more surprises, I nodded slowly. I can give up the bills, I said, gladly. I just need you to really do it. Not say you will and then disappear for a month. I know, she whispered. And I, Jonathan chimed in, surprising us, can keep doing the house stuff. Yard, repairs, driving her when June can't. And I can take the kids over more. They love their Nana. Ms. Ramirez wrote it all down. We talked about home health agencies. We talked about respite grants. We talked about durable power of attorney. And I pulled out the paperwork I'd had Mama sign 6 months earlier when she was still clear enough to do it. I put both our names on it, I said to Linda, sliding it across the table. Yours and mine, because I didn't want you to feel shut out, even though I could have just put mine, since I'm the one here. She stared at the paper, at Mama's shaky signature, at the little notary stamp. You did that, she whispered. I did, I said, because even when I wanted to wring your neck, you were still my sister. And Mama always said, "You two are what you'll have when I'm gone. Don't you ruin that." She laughed through her tears. "She did say that, didn't she?" "About once a week," I said. By the time Ms. Ramirez closed her notebook, the meatballs were cold, the coffee was colder, and I felt like I'd run a marathon from the couch. As everyone stood up, stretching, shifting, I closed the binder. My hands were shaking a little. Linda came around the coffee table and sat down next to me. "Can I look at it?" she asked, nodding toward the binder. I hesitated. Then I nodded. She opened it. Her eyes moved over receipts, notes, printouts. Every now and then she'd put her finger on something and say, "I don't even remember this." And I'd say, "That's 'cause you were in Denver that week. Or that was when you were sick, remember? You had the flu." After a while, she closed it and put her hand on top of mine. "I'm sorry," she said, "just that. No qualifiers. No excuses. I really didn't know. I didn't want to know. It was easier to think you were exaggerating. Or that Mom wasn't that bad yet." "I know," I said. "I probably would have done the same if I'd been where you are." She shook her head. "No, you're better at sitting in the hard stuff than I am. I'm just more stuck in it," I said. We sat there in silence for a minute. Mama dozed in her chair, her mouth slightly open, snoring soft. Jonathan played a game on his phone with the sound off, giving us privacy he pretended not to give. "You know what's funny?" Linda said finally. "What's that?" "I had my own little folder," she confessed. "Up in Nashville. Emails from you. Pictures Mom texted me. Notes from the times I managed to talk to her doctor on the phone. Receipts from the money I sent. I kept it all, in case anyone ever said I didn't care." I stared at her. "I never thought you didn't care." "I did," she said, "about myself. I thought if I really cared, I'd be down here, doing what you're doing. Because I wasn't. I had to prove to myself, to my therapist, to God that I cared in other ways." "That's the thing about care," I said. "It doesn't look the same on everybody." She nodded. "Yeah, but we sure have spent a lot of time trying to prove it." We both looked at the binder. "Can we start over?" she asked. "Not from scratch," I said. "We can't pretend the last 3 years didn't happen. But we can maybe stop keeping score and start sharing the load." "That'd be nice," she said. "I'm tired of feeling like either the hero or the villain. I just want to be her daughter." "Me too," I said. We sat there until Mama snorted herself awake and said, "Well now, did we decide anything? Or are we just gonna stare at each other all day?" We laughed. All 3 of us. And for a brief moment, it felt like before any of this. Like we were just 3 kids in our mama's living room again, arguing over who had to take out the trash. I won't pretend everything was magically fixed after that meeting. Real life don't work like that. We still had arguments. We still had moments where Linda dropped the ball, or I snapped at her for asking a question I'd already answered 3 times. There were still nights I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if we were doing the right thing for Mama. But things shifted. Linda took over the bills, like she said she would. She got Mama's bank accounts organized, set up autopay, applied for all the benefits and waivers and programs I didn't even know existed. She dealt with the insurance companies. Bless her patient little heart. I let go of some of that control. It wasn't easy. I'd been clutching those bills like armor, like proof that I mattered. But once I saw how much mental space it freed up, I wished I'd let her do it sooner. We hired a home health aide 3 afternoons a week, paid for by a program Ms. Ramirez found for us. Her name was Tanya. She had a laugh like a church choir, and hands that knew how to be gentle without being patronizing. On Tanya days, I went back to the salon for full shifts, or I sat at home and just breathed, or I went to my granddaughter's school play without checking my phone every 5 minutes. That, in itself, was a kind of healing. And the binder, I kept using it. It moved from my purse to a little shelf by Mama's recliner, where it lived alongside her Bible and the remote control. It got fatter with new notes. First visit to adult day center, she enjoyed the music, but hated the crafts. Fall in bathroom, no injury, Tanya caught her. Consult with hospice nurse about future. One day, months later, I caught Linda sitting with it open on her lap while Mama napped. "What are you doing?" I asked, dropping onto the couch beside her. "Reading our story," she said. I smiled, a little sad. "It's not exactly a fairy tale." "No," she said, "but it's real. And when she's gone, I think I'm gonna be glad we have it, so we don't have to rely on remember that time and argue about whose memory is right. We'll just know." She ran her finger over a line where I'd written, "Mama sang, 'You are my sunshine' with me today, first time in months." "We lost so many pieces of her along the way," she whispered, "but we still got to catch some of them on paper." "Yeah," I said, "we did. 200, 300 word closure. I think about that binder a lot, now that Mama's gone and the house sits a little too quiet. It's on my bookshelf these days, in my little 2-bedroom rental, between a cookbook she loved and a photo album from the 80s where everybody's hair is doing crimes. Every so often, on a rainy afternoon or a night when the loneliness creaks louder than the floorboards, I'll pull it down and flip through. I see the first shaky note I wrote, just dipping my toe into what was coming. I see the neat rows of doctor words I had to learn how to pronounce so I could say them to other people without crying. I see the coffee stains on the pages from nights I fell asleep at the kitchen table. I see my sister's handwriting on some of the later pages, too. Her neat little check marks next to paid, her sticky notes saying, "I've got this one, don't worry." And I remember that day in her living room when she'd said, so sure, "You never helped Mom," and how those words felt like a slap. Then I remember the look in her eyes when she saw the binder open, when she realized she'd been living in a different story than the one I was living. Families do that, you know. We all walk around with our own versions of the narrative. Who was the good kid? Who was the screw up? Who did the work? Who did the damage? It's like every house has invisible wallpaper made out of those stories. Sometimes, if you're brave enough, you can peel it back and look at what's really underneath. That's what that binder was in the end. Not a weapon, not a trophy, just proof. Proof that love had taken shape in gas receipts and hospital bracelets and sleepless nights. Proof that I wasn't crazy or bitter or making it bigger than it was. Proof that I had been there. If there's anything I'd tell you, sitting at your kitchen table with your own pile of bills and bruised feelings, it's this. You're allowed to keep records. You're allowed to say, "This is what I did." Not to beat somebody over the head with it, but to keep yourself from disappearing. You're allowed to ask other people to look at that truth with you. A family is like an old house. We inherit a lot of cracked beams and stuck windows, and sometimes we add our own dents. But if everyone's willing to walk around with a flashlight, open some doors, maybe pull out a binder or two, you can shore up the foundation together. And if they keep saying, "You never did anything," while your hands are raw from all the scrubbing, well, you can still know, in your bones, in your papers, in your heart, you were there, you helped, you mattered. Sometimes that folder is the only thing standing between you and the story other folks would rather tell.